Late this morning as North Korea threatens to turn the U.S. to, quote, ashes. President Trump calling the country a menace while convincing China to help deal with the ruthless dictator. Griff Jenkins is live for us in Washington, D.C. with those latest developments this morning. Griff, good to see you.
Hey, Heather and Abby, it's good to see you. Here's a dire threat from North Korean state media to start your weekend off, escalating tensions even further. The regime warning in an editorial of a, quote, super mighty preemptive strike that will completely and immediately wipe out not only imperialist invasion forces in South Korea and its surrounding areas, but the U.S. mainland and reduce them to ashes. Defense Secretary Jim Mattis, traveling in Israel, responding to the latest provocation just moments ago.
Their word is not proven honest. It's been provocative. They've not lived up to any statements they've made in the past. I would just take their words at the same value we've always given them, as we've learned not to trust them.
This comes as President Trump praises China for putting economic and political pressure on North Korea amidst imminent concerns of more nuke tests, calling the rogue nation a, quote, menace, and reassuring that the situation is under control.
As far as North Korea is concerned, we are in very good shape. We're building our military rapidly. A lot of things have happened over the last short period of time. I've been here for approximately 91 days. We're doing a lot of work. We're in very good position.
But some question China's commitment. A senior U.S. defense official telling Fox News that they have seen a greater amount of military activity in China, but admits it's not exactly clear what it means. Meanwhile, the USS Carl Vinson arrives at the Sea of Japan next week, and reports are that the U.S. has deployed its nuke-sniffing aircraft to the peninsula as the world waits for what is likely North Korea's sixth nuclear test. So we wait.
Yeah, a busy weekend ahead, I am sure. Thank you, Griff. Thank you, Griff.
Move overseas right now. Conflicting reports today out of Moscow about whether or not it's building up defenses near the border with North Korea. That is Fox News is learning for the fourth night in a row. Russian bombers or spy planes buzz by Alaskan airspace. Let's start on the North Korean matter now. This video of heavy Russian weaponry has been making the rounds on social media throughout the week. You'll see in a moment here. There have also been reports that Russia is sending troops to bolster the border with North Korea. But the AP cites a Russian defense official who says the movement was all pre-planned. There's also a Russian news agency quoting a military spokesman for the area that the military hardware was on its way back from drills in other places. Still, a spokesman for the Kremlin reportedly did not deny the troop movement to North Korea when this was said.
The issue of deployment and redeployment of troops inside the country does not fall into the category of public affairs. Any country in the process of building its own security reacts to change in the international situation.
In other words, none of your business. Keep in mind, this all comes after we learned the Syrian government moved nearly all of its operational aircraft to a Russian airbase. Officials say it's for protection in case of new U.S. missile strikes there. Wow. Also today, more Russian meddling off the American coastline. U.S. officials telling us here at Fox that on Wednesday night, 2 Russian spy planes flew near the Aleutian Islands, which extend off the southwestern part of Alaska's mainland and into the Bering Sea. Then last night, officials say 2 long-range and nuclear-capable bombers flew by Alaska and the Canada coastline. Now, those 2 incidents come right after similar ones on Monday and on Tuesday of this week, so 4 nights and 4 flybys by the Russians. Jennifer Griffin with more now from the Pentagon Live there. And what do officials make of these flights near Alaska? Start there, Jennifer.
Well, Bill, it's clear that the Russians are trying to test the response time of the U.S. Air Force. Last night, as you reported, a pair of long-range nuclear-capable Tupolev 95 Bear bombers flew near Alaska and Canada, staying in both countries' air defense zones for several hours, we're told. On April 19th, a pair of Russian spy planes flew near the Aleutian Islands in the Bering Sea, staying in the U.S. air defense zone for a few hours as well before departing. Wednesday night, the U.S. Air Force did not scramble any fighter jets or airborne warning AWACS planes, but last night, 2 F-22 stealth fighter jets were scrambled to intercept the Russian Bear bombers. The Russian jets in both incidents remained in international airspace. It's not immediately clear how close they came to the mainland Alaska, Bill.
On Syria now, Jennifer, switching over to that topic, what are we hearing from the Pentagon that we need to know about this?
Well, the attempt to take Raqqa, the ISIS capital, that is ramping up, along with pressure on the Assad regime. At a press conference in Tel Aviv, Defense Secretary Jim Mattis had a message about Assad's chemical weapons.
There can be no doubt in the international community's mind that Syria has retained chemical weapons in violation of its agreement and its statement that it had removed them all. There's no longer any doubt. The amount of it I don't want to get into right now. We don't reveal some of that detail because we don't want to reveal how we're finding out.
Meantime, Fox has learned from senior U.S. defense officials that the ISIS capital Raqqa has been surrounded by U.S.-backed troops. ISIS fighters cannot escape Raqqa north of the Euphrates River. There is a small corridor that civilians and others are using to leave the city in the direction of Tabqa. Fox has also learned that ISIS has essentially moved its capital to Deir el-Zor, and 2 months ago, ISIS leaders quietly began setting up the bureaucratic functions of their so-called government outside Raqqa in a town called Mayadeen, where today, CENTCOM tweeted that the U.S. killed a mid-level associate of the ISIS leader Abu Bakr al-Baghdadi. He was killed, that associate of Baghdadi was killed in a U.S. airstrike.
Wow, if that's all the case, ISIS is on the run. Thank you, Jennifer Griffin, the Pentagon there. Got some breaking news overseas right now, just coming into us right now. A Navy F-18 Super Hornet pilot has ejected safely in the sea south of the Philippines. No injuries to the pilot, apparently working with the USS Carl Vinson, which at the moment is heading toward the Korean Peninsula. So I wanted to share that with you just crossing a moment ago.
In the back of the book segment tonight, we have come to the last line of the last page of this book. As most of you know, this is the final factor. It has been an honor to sit in this chair over the years, filling in for Bill O'Reilly, and being a guest on perhaps the most influential television news program in history. But as the curtain comes down on this show, another one will be raised on a new era. That will happen on Monday. I and my sparring partners on the 5 will be relocating to the 9 p.m. hour, and Tucker Carlson will be taking over this time slot. Tucker joins me now. Tucker, congratulations on the new hour. It's an exciting, unusual, and unique time. I got to ask you, what do you have coming up Monday night?
We've got a lot. I mean, look, I'm a conservative. I don't believe in change necessarily.
I hear you.
So I don't think we're going to change things too much. Mm-hmm. I'm very aware of the history of this hour, the bigness of it, the success of it, and the audience, which is the key to all of it. Mm-hmm. So I hope I can stay true to the basics of the hour. So we're going to be skeptical, as always. I think that's the heart of journalism. Mm-hmm. Ask tough questions, be respectful. Right. I think that's okay. But, force people with power to account for what they're doing.
Yeah, that's the theme. Are you going to get a new haircut?
Sure, I will. I did last. Every time I change hours, I get a call saying, "Cut your hair."
It gets slightly shorter and more establishment. I have to say, though, I mean, I think the toughest job at Fox is to be your booker, because their job is to set the cheese in the mousetrap. And they have to convince somebody, Tucker's going to be great, you're going to do great, and then I watch and it's like, oh my God, what just happened?
Well, bookers are the most amazing people in the world. I'm not just saying that to suck up, though I would say to suck up because I'm afraid of them. No, but they're this amazing combination of highly aggressive, relentless,
right?
Honey badger-like attitude, and charming at the same time. So, I mean, I can be aggressive, I can be charming. It's hard to be both. In fact, I can't, but bookers can.
Yeah.
They're amazing people.
I just like the look you get when you're honing in on a guest. It's like a dog watching a tumbling dryer. You just kind of look and you're like, you're mesmerized, and then you shoot off a question. It's like, oh, I got to ask you, are you going to be staying in D.C. or are you moving to New York? Are you doing the show from there?
Well, I hate to admit this since it is the swamp, but no, I'm staying here in Washington where I've lived my whole adult life. And, a lot of things wrong with Washington. It's totally corrupt, for example, but it's an interesting place to live. And so I like that. I'm going to stay right here among people I know. I lived in both places, and I will say with confidence that the rodents are bigger in New York. Being a small person, that matters. But you do, one more question, you do have
a pretty special guest on Monday, and I mean, I think it's quite a get. And
we've got Caitlyn Jenner coming on the show on Monday, and there are a lot of ways to approach an interview with Caitlyn Jenner. I'm interested in the politics,
absolutely,
of it, and this is someone who apparently is not a conventional liberal at all. And what's it like to live in that world and have views that are not of that world?
Yeah.
So I want to find out.
Yeah, no, I think it's a great get. I can't wait to watch. I think you're going to do fantastic, and I congratulate you with your rise. It's unstoppable. Don't take my job, please, Tucker. Don't take it.
We're going to be next to each other.
I know.
Every night.
We'll have our lockers next to each other.
I'll be throwing
you
to
can
you.
stuff me in mine. All right, Tucker. Thank you.
Fox News alert. This is President Trump meeting with Aya Hijazi, an Egypt American aid worker. Let's listen in. No question. We are very happy to have Aya back home, and it's a great honor to have her in the Oval Office with her brother, and thank you very much. Thank you. We'll call this one of the early successes of the Trump administration. Aya Hijazi and her husband were aid workers in Egypt. They were arrested on child abuse charges that were widely thought to be somewhat suspect. The president intervened on her behalf with the president of Egypt, and now she is free. And as you just saw there, meeting in the Oval Office with the president of the United States.
We are now learning the terror gunman who killed a police officer on the Champs-Élysées was questioned as recently as 2 months ago and was considered a risk to public safety. ICE is now taking responsibility after the gunman was killed by police in a wild shootout. President Trump and Vice President Pence saying the scene here is all too familiar.
It's a very, very terrible thing that's going on in the world today, but it looks like another terrorist attack. And what can you say? It just never ends. We have to be strong and we have to be vigilant.
This is just the latest reminder that terrorism can strike anywhere, at any time. Also, Mr. Trump tweeting earlier today, another terrorist attack in Paris. The people of France will not take much more of this. Will have a big effect on presidential election, and tweet.
And we've got Kellyanne Conway standing by for more reaction from the White House. But first, we go live to senior foreign affairs correspondent Greg Palcott in Paris. Good morning, Craig.
Hey, Shannon. Yeah, terror hitting the streets of Paris again. They couldn't have it at a worse time. Right here at 9 o'clock last night, local time, where I'm standing on the Champs-Élysées, a man got out of a car with an AK-47 automatic rifle and then shot at and around a police van. He killed one police officer, he seriously injured 2 others, and also hit a tourist. And then he fled, and then they shot. We are told rounds and rounds of bullets flying here in the Champs-Élysées, tourists all around. They brought him down, they killed him. The man is 39-year-old Karim Shurfi. He is French-born with a record. He, in fact, spent at least 10 years in jail for attempting to kill another police officer back in 2001. And just in the past couple of months, he was in custody, threatening again police. He was on a terror watch list. The fear from police is that he had been radicalized in prison. This comes on the eve, as you noted, of the French presidential elections first round. There was, in fact, a TV debate going on exactly at the time that this attack went on. Today, we heard from anti-immigrant National Front candidate Marine Le Pen. She said the borders should be shut down. Finally, we had a chance a couple of minutes ago to talk with a couple and their 3 children from Paintsville, Kentucky. They were here for their 30th anniversary, and they were here right in the middle of it all. Take a listen.
We saw the shooter with the gun, and he started shooting bullets in the air, and the police were in the street. So it was a very terrifying moment.
Had he shot the policeman already?
We saw a man go down. Okay.
You saw a man go down?
We did.
He did this, and it went this direction. I saw him move it. When he did that, I could see very clearly the machine gun.
It's unbelievable.
It was terrorist event. I mean, it was an attack.
When the bullets started to fly, they ran and ran literally for their life. In fact, they picked up the tourist that had fallen down because she was hit, and then they were inside for 2.5 hours. They said, and I quote, God was looking after us. Absolutely. Scene of horror last night, once again, here in Paris. Back to you.
All right, Greg Palcott with the very latest from Paris. Thank you.
In the Impact segment tonight, on Thursday night, a gunman killed a police officer and wounded 3 others on one of Paris's most famous streets, forcing an early end to campaigning for France's presidential election, which was scheduled for Sunday. President Trump weighed in on the matter this morning, tweeting, "Another terrorist attack in Paris. The people of France will not take much more of this. Will have a big effect on the presidential election." But in France, where a presidential election will be held on Sunday, one of the centrist candidates seemed resigned to it, saying, quote, this threat will be a fact of daily life in the coming years. Joining us now with the latest, Fox News chief Washington correspondent James Rosen. So, James, I got to ask you, has there been any update in this crime? Is there a second suspect out there, or are they assuming it's just one guy?
For the moment, it seems like all of the efforts are focused on learning more about the one guy who was shot while trying to escape after he killed the police officer and shot 3 other people. And out tumbled from his body, we learned from the French authorities today, after he was shot, a note in which he had words of praise for Daesh, or ISIS as we call it here. So there's every indication this was a terrorist event, Greg.
Yeah. So that's what I was going to say. Is it something where it's likely that ISIS claims something after the fact, that he was not, they had not executed this, but they had inspired it?
Right, and that serves their propaganda purposes. And we've seen in a number of cases where ISIS has claimed credit or some sort of affinity with one of these individuals who's involved in this kind of atrocity. Whether or not, in fact, really ISIS had anything directly to do with that individual. It was an interesting comment, though, that you just mentioned from Emmanuel Macron, the centrist candidate in the French presidential election, when he basically indicated that this is the new normal, that we're going to have to acclimate ourselves to these kind of events for the foreseeable future. That's not, generally speaking, a winning posture for candidates, but it does remind me of an incredibly brilliant cartoon that ran in the New Yorker right after 9/11. It showed the classic evolutionary sequence where there's like a sort of a primordial ooze and there's a fish that rises from it, and then it starts to walk on 2 legs, and then it starts to walk upright. The last panel in this sequence in the New Yorker cartoon showed a man in a suit and tie carrying a briefcase and walking through a magnetometer, as if to say this kind of thing post 9/11 is with us here to stay in some respect.
Thank you, James, for explaining an entire cartoon to our audience. But I do agree. I don't think the candidate was being, I think he was just being honest about the nature of the world. And it might hurt him. But anyway, James, thank you. Now for more analysis, Fox News contributor, Lieutenant Colonel Ralph Peters, who joins us from Washington. So, Colonel Peters, what is your take on the terror attack in Paris? And will it have an effect on the election? And also, should it have an effect?
Well, first of all, with the statement by Macron that this is the new normal, you know,